Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Mental Health. This is episode number 7, I believe, with me, Joe, and today I'm joined by teacher and founder of Talk About It Mate, Mike Richard. How are you, Mike?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on, mate. Really appreciate you taking the time. So do you just want to introduce yourself, Mike? Just kind of give us a little flavour about who you are and what you do.
Mike Richard, 34. I'm now a primary school teacher slash trainee counsellor, and I've set up my own community interest company, like a non-profit, which is focused on mental health and what's called peer support, which we'll probably come on to later. I've had quite a journey to see me work in a lot of places and travel around, and I have my own mental health struggles, which I'm kind of put into the work that I do now with Talk About It Mate.
Yeah, fantastic. So just because you said you're a teacher, what do you teach?
I'm a primary school teacher. I have been for about 11 years, but the last 3 years I've been kind of cutting down my teaching and increasing my mental health work and counselling work. So it's a long process, but hopefully in 2 years' time there'll be no more teaching and just counselling. So it'll be worth it.
Fantastic. So a little transitional period for yourself.
Yeah.
Nice.
Needs a lot of patience.
Yeah, can imagine. So do you want to just give us a little bit about, you, kind of your life growing up and what life was like as a kid, where you grew up, etc.?
Yeah, of course. I grew up in Stockport and had quite a settled upbringing until I was about 7, and then I don't know, my parents kind of broke up and divorced, and my dad moved away, and I don't know, I just feel like that's what, having had a lot of counselling and done a lot of reflection, that's what the root of my mental health problems around that time, and then the difficult teenage years. A lot of it was to do with being overweight and self-worth and self-esteem and things like that. And then obviously back then you didn't really get the support or the visibility of mental health like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, by about 18 I was diagnosed with depression, and you couldn't really tell anybody about that. And I went through my 20s. While I had some great ups, I also had some massive downs, and then I got to the end of my 20s and I had a mental breakdown, and that was the penny had dropped there, and that was kind of the beginning of climbing myself, like taking myself out of that hole and improving my mental health. I've had some great highlights along that journey, but now I'm putting things in place for people which I wish I'd had in that journey.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's good to see people, are more aware of what's going on. And like you said, when you were younger, it wasn't really talked about. It wasn't really a thing, but now it seems more open and out there, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, it's massively more accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important things is people know where they can go or that they can get support that's available to them. Can I just ask, what was it like for you, looking back now as a 7-year-old when your parents split up and dad moved away? What was that like at the time? And then looking back at it as you got older, how did you sort of perceive it as an adult?
Well, yeah, perception is everything. And as a child, I think I was quite high function as a child compared to my peers. Like I was I got bullied for being geeky and all that, and for being fat as well. And I just knew there was something wasn't right with my home life. You see how things are presented in the media with the families, and you look at other friends and families, and I don't know, it just felt like somehow there was something wrong. But I think what I did is I was like, this is my fault. Like they didn't stay together because I wasn't a good enough child, or and I don't think that gets talked about enough, especially in terms of parents separating, especially when you're an only child like I am. So there was a real disconnection of me feeling not good enough in comparison to other people. And you get through school by keeping your head down, don't you? But then once the dust settles and you come out of high school, you either, in some instances, you sink or swim. And, it was a bit of delayed, but then I did have a bad time. So you carry things with you for a long, long time until you get to the root cause.
Mm-hmm. So when you were diagnosed with depression at 18, was that kind of the journey that you'd been on from, a 7-year-old to being diagnosed, or was it kind of other things along the way that sort of put you towards that diagnosis?
Good question. I don't know. I think it came on in teenage years, but I didn't. That hit me like out of the blue that it was depression. But yeah, I think my mood had been really up and down, and I've looked into that in years since, and I don't think it's just depression. I think there's other things to it, which I'll come on to later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it knocked me for six, to be honest, and like you couldn't tell anyone, like within my community of friends, you know, not people that I work with, other things. Like you couldn't back then. What was that? 2004 or something. You couldn't talk about that. Like at all. Like I'd be like, oh hey guys, I can go down the pub and say, hey guys, I've just been diagnosed with depression and I'm on medication. In fact, it can cause a wedge between friends, and that's one of the reasons why people don't reach out and get help. But now we're making it more accessible. But yeah, looking back, I probably wasn't very kind to myself.
In what way were you not very kind to yourself?
Well, I thought that there was something wrong with me. Well, in that, like, I was seriously messed up, and I was like some kind of freak, and I couldn't like move on in my life. And I dropped out of uni, went on to uni, and that's the first time you leave home properly. And then I'd done like 4 or 5 months and was unimpressed, and I was just really isolated. And I think when that isolation hits home, that's when all the symptoms and the warning signs come through, and like all those things you should look out for. But then I wasn't really in contact with a lot of people, so I ended up coming back home a lot, and then I just couldn't hack it. Like, and it took me a couple of years to get my head around that before I decided to go back to uni and become a teacher and move on with my life.
Yeah, no, I think, fair play to you. You said there you went back and you finished off your degree and you qualified as a teacher. I think it could have been easy to just decide then and there that you weren't going back and you were just going to try something different. And credit to you for that, because that can't have been an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and I look at young people nowadays, and this fiasco with the A levels and things like that, and opportunities are being taken away from people. And I was very lucky. I was able to go. I wanted to originally be a journalist. Then I thought I had some time out and went back to university and thought, no, I'm going to be trained to be a teacher. And I think it was different times then. I think there were less pressurized times than we are living in nowadays. Yet I didn't have the tools at my disposal to begin to try and understand myself. So that I had to wait until I was about 29 to really think, right, I can actually get to a stage where I can try and understand myself better. Whereas I think for younger people now, their sources of support are there.
Yeah, and again, I think that's so important, isn't it, that they've got people available to help them and support them when they need it, which is something sounds like you didn't have when you were younger, and I can't remember I had much of either. Luckily I don't feel like, looking back now, I struggle too much, but I think that if I had have struggled, I don't know where I would have gone. Yeah, interesting. And you said you had a real struggle at the age of, was it 29 when you said you had the mental breakdown?
Yeah, it was about 2 months before my 30th birthday, and I've been living abroad, and I've been away from Manchester, and I was living in London at the time, and I think I'd moved back to the UK because I knew that there was probably deep down knew there was a mental health crisis coming in me, and I was in an unhappy relationship and unhappy in a job in a school in London. And yeah, a lot of pressures on me, and no outlets, no one to really talk to about it. Access to therapies, there's a waiting list if you go through NHS, which obviously that's there for the people who need it the most. And then private therapies aren't the cheapest, but we're trying to improve that. And yeah, it just all came to a head, and people say, yeah, it's a cry for help, and sometimes they roll their eyes when they say that. But if someone's crying out for help, then give them help. Because it's as simple as that. And yeah, luckily, my best friend, he's a doctor, his wife's a mental health nurse, so they really helped me, and I was able to move in with them and try and put my life back on track. I was very lucky, actually, because within 6 months I'd met my now wife, and I'd got rid of that job and an unhappy relationship, and I'd moved on. But I was very, very lucky. So I'm quite blessed with what happened there.
And that's important, isn't it? You had, you said your friend and his wife kind of took you in and supported you as much as they could. I just wanted to ask you, because you said there about, you were in an unhappy relationship and unhappy in the job that you were doing. Do you feel that people take that seriously enough. You know, I think a lot of people I know, and I've met a lot of people who are unhappy in a job, but they just stay in it because they need to earn money, or they can't find another job, and that has a negative effect on them going forward.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like it's many people like achieve what you say, like the status quo in life, like, and especially in men, this is a big thing. Like, you know, do you have your settled job? You got your car? You got your relationship? You know, like these are like things that people wear with badge of honor without even looking at them from a perspective of like, do you actually like having these things because they're just like status symbols, or do they mean a lot to you? And you know, I, I don't think people take the time to look at things and are they being authentic. You know, you get swept up in this, and I've done it myself. Like, you have put on a social mask. You think, well, this is the way I've got to be. Obviously, nowadays you see it through like people on Instagram. Like, that's just the way Instagram is as a platform, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, you have to take a lot of that with a pinch of salt. But I think this is again why it can be harder for young people growing up, because they think, if I don't have that car, and if I don't have that job and that figure, then I'm not worth something. And that's wrong. Like, that's, you know, if you embrace what you actually love, like which I've done the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years, and you actually enjoy doing, then your life can be loads more worthwhile.
Yeah, very, very underestimated doing. I know it's a cliche, and excuse me, you know, you hear it a lot. Do what you love, and you'll get so much more back. And I think it's true. You know, I do a lot of what I love, and I get loads back. And then I think back to when I was doing jobs that I felt like I had to do to earn money, and I just think, oh, what a struggle that was. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying we're both in quite a privileged position in that sense, and there's a lot of people out there who do have to do jobs that, you know, they might necessarily want to do, but there are other aspects of your life where, you know, I'm very much against fakeness, and I don't know whether I've actually been diagnosed with ADHD now, so I've got a very short attention span. In that, if someone's like, and I think I've always been like that since I'm a kid, if someone's going on about something and they're kind of like blowing their own trumpet, but it's not arrogant, you know, like, but I just get a bit like, just be honest, be honest with yourself, you know, like, be more truthful. Don't have to try as hard as this to I don't know, like, some things people, it comes naturally to them, but I don't know, I just feel like we need a bit more of a dose of reality and good role models who work in well-being, especially.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned reality. I'm not a big fan of, you know, you think of reality TV. It's not reality, is it? It's kind of a forced reality that people look at and go, oh, that's what life's really like. And it's like, no, that's just a TV show, and they're kind of putting it on to make it look good, and, you know, creating drama for the sake of it.
Yeah, it gets ratings, but I think it's done a lot of damage to aspirations, especially within the working classes over the last 15, 20 years in this country. So things that should be valued, in my opinion, like compassion, education, you know, like, just being a decent person, are kind of downplayed, as in against how many followers you've got, like how you got abs, or you got like, you know, tan eyelashes. I don't know, like, because I couldn't play that game, because like I've never been anything, like, I never got any attention from women. I've never been a good-looking lad. I used to be a fat lad, you know, like, so my self-esteem has always been like, I've always had to exist. But it's like, people think that if you're just this polished product, but that's not very real, is it? And that's fragile in their self-esteem, and I'm not judging them for that. It's just, I think, you know, the pressures on younger people, because I know you work with younger people, are massive, and they need people like you going into coaching like this, because to change their perceptions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've met young people and I've asked them the question, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up, or what's one of your ambitions?
Yeah.
And it's scary. So many times people, you know, not just young people, but like young 20 somethings as well, say, I really want to be on Love Island. And I'm like, wow, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's kind of now become the benchmark of basing some sort of success on getting on Love Island and whatever comes with that.
It's dangerous for mental health. Obviously, it's been high documented cases, and I'm not just bashing all youth culture and social media. Like, if a young person, I teach in schools, in primary schools, and a lot of them say, oh, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a coder. Like, they'd be great jobs, because to be a YouTuber or a vlogger, I've just been learning this, you have to get all the equipment, you have to learn how to edit, you have to like, we live in a computer-based world, so that, those are things that are popular, maybe not our generation aren't as bothered about, but they are.
Mhm.
And coding, for example, is probably one of the most important skills a young person can have nowadays. Like, but on the flip side, I just want to be on Love Island. It's like a fast way to get attention or money, and I understand that, but it's a bit like, well, what else is there?
Yeah, it's like a quick shortcut, isn't it? Quick fix. It's like an easy way, I guess, to make it.
Yeah, but without talent, like traditionally, the two ways that you can go from zero to hero would be to be a musician or a rock star, to be a sports person. Yeah, and like, you sell the American dream, and that's how people get scholarships in college in America, isn't it? If they're good at sports and stuff like that, if they're from poorer backgrounds, and there's some like level of hard work and dedication and effort that goes into achieving those things. And with the musicians, there's talent, obviously, creativity. But with these things, it's like, well, what are you actually like? What are your actual skills? Like, what's that messages that sending out to young people that like you could make money and be successful in life if you're good looking, vain, and vacuous. Sorry, that's a rant. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's my thought. That's my political thought.
Yeah, no, I understand that message that it kind of puts out there that if you are X, Y, and Z, you can be and have and do X, Y, and Z. Whereas actually, that's not the case. You can be, have, and do whatever you want as long as you put some time and effort and commitment into learning something, or growing a skill or something along those lines.
Yeah, in counselling, that's called conditions of worth. So we all have some kind of conditions of worth in life. We've talked about it before, like the house, the car. Like, I am worth something if I do something. But one of the key principles of person-centered counselling, which I'll be going into, is called unconditional positive regard. Because people think if they do something wrong, they're not worth anything. But the point of the matter is, especially like people who are social workers or work with ex-convicts or people like that, like, no matter what people have done, like, it is hard, but someone's got to show you like positive regard, because otherwise we live in a society where nowadays you have what's called a cancel culture, don't we? And it's like, if you make one mistake or one slip up, it's like your life is over, and it shouldn't be that way, because people deserve the chance to learn from their mistakes and build resilience, which I imagine is a big part of what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Again, the old cliche, we all make mistakes and we have to just accept that. And as long as we learn from those mistakes and we don't repeat them, you can continue, and you are still worth something.
I've made loads, and luckily I've been able to, say, reinvent myself, but grow into a person who I like actually quite like now, and I like getting out of bed in the morning. Whereas 6-7 years ago I was suicidal. So life can get better.
Yeah. There is always light at the end of the tunnel as long as you keep going towards that and keep having that hope. So I just wanted to move it on a little bit. So can you just now tell us a little bit about Talk It Mate?
Yeah, Talk About It Mate is
Talk about it, mate. I said that wrong, didn't I? Talk It Mate. Talk about it, mate.
The name was the first thing that kind of came, really, because I thought it's just talking about it helped me so much. Whatever it is, and anyone can do that. So I did this blog about, and just poured out all my feelings and everything I've been through with the breakdown, and put it out on Facebook, and like had a panic attack, turned my phone off, like, then turned it back on, and I had like 100 messages and stuff, and like, because it was like a big leap of faith for me to say this for the first time in my life, to say this is who I am and this is what I've been through. And people were very shocked, because I'm quite an open, cheeky, chappy kind of guy, and I always had like quite a lot of mates because of that. But a lot of that was because of people pleasing, I think, and then people seeing what you've really been through. And about a dozen messages from men and like guys or friends of friends saying like, oh, this is really important. I felt a lot of these things. This happened to me. And then so people were then coming to me, and then I met up with a couple of lads, and not coaching, but I listened to them and talk things through with them. And then I was like, I would like to set this up as like a more regular group. And someone said, just go for it. And that was, it was about 3 years ago. And then set it up on Talk About It Mate up on Meetup, which is like a website. You sign up for free events or whatever. we did like, we'll meet for a drink or we'll go for a coffee. And it just became more regular and regular. And go to an art gallery, we'll go bowling, you know. And then as it spiraled, and then like got to the stage where about last year, I was like, right, I need to put together some more like formal meetings here, and especially for men, because, you know, this is the, you know, the crisis point within mental health. A lot of it is involving men. You know, so you stick to what you know. You know, if you're a man, why not? Like, not that saying that we don't meet with women as well, but I put about 6 months of prepping to launching these groups, which we were launching in April. So we had 3 locations. I'd done all the training from the facilitators. I'd done it all myself, you know, like, and I hadn't, you know, done it like out of my own pocket, you know, a few £100 here, a few £100 there, get some insurance, yeah, all this. And then we launched in Levenshulme in South Manchester, and then we were about to go in the city centre, and then lockdown hit. And it was like, boom, like it was like just pulled the rug out from under me. And like, you know I've learned to be more resilient, but I was absolutely gutted. And for about 3 days, I was just like not nice to be around, because I was just so frustrated with the situation. But luckily, with the guys in the community, and because I'd been running men's groups for other organisations, they were all rallied round, and then we went on to Zoom, and we've done 50 odd like on Zoom now through lockdown. Like, it's been a massive constant for the guys. Like, if all these mental health or problems are coming up through lockdown, the groups have been a big solution to a lot of them, because it's been a place you can depend on and show up to and share. And yeah, that's been massive. And within lockdown, we've grown the structure of the organisation, and we've increased the reach. We've done another series of the podcast in lockdown. We're planning production for a 3rd season, which will be like a big increase. So like everything is moving in the right direction, despite the thing that I thought had completely stopped everything. Longest answer ever.
That's amazing. You know, so was it a consistent thing you were doing every week, or did you have a couple during the week for people to sign up to?
Yeah, at the moment we started just do Wednesday night, like 6:30 to 7:30. It's free. It's on Zoom. And like we trialed that out. We did Google Hangouts, which was rubbish, and then we did Zoom, and I was like, pulling the hair out. But yeah, then since then we added a Sunday night one, same time. So yeah, we've been doing twice weekly for about 3-4 months now. And then we've also added, like, we had quizzes on the Saturday mornings and like social coffee morning. We've got a book club now. We've got a podcast club, which is every couple of weeks. People are really getting into podcasts now. So we can talk about a different podcast episode each time, roughly related to mental health. But I think I don't drop the word mental health into everything that we do, because I think there is still a stigma attached to it. And people always think about the negative side of mental health, but you know, I think we're an organisation that lift people up, like, and provide growth for people.
Fantastic. And you said you do women's groups as well as men's groups.
Yeah, I mentioned it, and then my wife was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." And I didn't put a gun to her head, definitely, but she's just gone from strength to strength, and they built their own community, and now they've gone twice weekly. So and again, it's always free, because that we want to keep these things free at the point of entry. Like anything that supplements that, like, you know, it could go into the world of coaching, like, you know very well. Obviously, I can provide counselling in the future, and I'd love to train up other male counsellors, and we can really target that men's, you know, epidemic almost. But it's very, very exciting. Sometimes I have to say, like, you can only do so many things, because I can get very ahead of myself.
Right. That's good though. I mean, you guys are putting out there an opportunity for people to come into a space where they can communicate and talk. And I think you mentioned it right at the beginning as well, peer support.
Which a lot of people won't know what that is.
Go on and give us a flavour of what peer support is for those that don't know.
Peer support, I think, is where you get a group of people together that have a lot of compassion and have been through things themselves, no matter, even though it's not the same things, but they can begin to understand each other's stories. And there's no hierarchy, no experts, but they learn from each other. So I might share what I've shared with you about my experiences of depression, for example. and the next person might strike a chord with them and they share from their experiences. So it's not heavy in that, like, no one's grilling you and, you know, asking you really direct questions. We try to avoid that. And no one's, one of the worst things that, I don't know how you feel, is when someone just was like, give you some unsolicited advice when you've not asked for any advice.
Yeah.
You just want to go there and get something off your chest. Oh, Mike, have you tried yoga? Oh man, yes, I have tried yoga, but like, don't be just, oh, have you tried? Yeah, you should go for a walk. Or you know what I do is this. You should do this. No, that's like, we have a contract to say, like, avoid that. Like, oh, it's interesting what Joe said about anxiety. That made me think of this time. And honestly, you have the beginning of the hour and the end of the hour, and nearly everyone in the group, and I'm not just saying this, will say that they feel better after the hour. And the key to it, I suppose, peer support, is you're learning about each other, but to help you learn about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So self-awareness, I think, is the key for everything, because in person-centered approaches, like in therapy as well, it's the best approach in my opinion, because the person, it sounds cheesy, but the person knows themselves the best. You're the expert on your life. I'm not an expert on your life. You have the answers to your issues inside of you. It has to come from you, because if someone just says to you, do this and do that, like, how long is that going to last for?
Yeah, that's it. And a lot of that relates to coaching as well. You know, coaching, you're asking people questions that they already know the answers to, but they haven't actually verbalized them yet, or they haven't, you know, communicated them with somebody else, or they haven't really thought about it on a different level, or you ask a question that they might not ask themselves. And I think, like you said, it's really important that people know themselves better than anybody else. So for me to tell you, oh, well, Mike, I know you've been through this, so why don't you try this? I haven't been through it. I have no idea what it's like, but I'm giving you my opinion based on what I do or don't know. You know, and I think it's so important, rather than telling people. It's more, I mean, I'm a big believer in asking questions. Ask them what they already know, you know, and they might not have thought about it in a way that you put it across to them, but them, for them to figure out their own ideas and solutions is the best way forward.
Yeah, it's about they begin to take ownership and responsibility over their own things. Like, and I think people are scared to do that, because I think when they think that people are suffering, people have a tendency to rescue that person, or to, like, take the burden away from the person. Not that, it's a burden, but like, that person, if you're there with that person, like, almost like holding their hand, that's just enough. Sometimes we call it holding space with someone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hold that space with them and say, I'm here with you, no matter what you've done, I'm not going to judge you, but this is a key to it. Like, so it's not, don't want them to get embarrassed or anything like that, so that they can begin to explore that space. And like, I had coaching when I was in London. I had counselling, I had coaching, and he did push me, he did test me, but everything that came from the coaching was what I wanted to achieve in life. So I wouldn't have started to train to be a counsellor if I hadn't have done the coaching. I wouldn't have confronted a lot of my issues. I wouldn't have started the weight loss journey. So I lost 4 stone in 3 years. Like, I wouldn't have got to the stage where I got married. Like, I just needed someone who to hold me accountable, but not in a horrible way. Like he was an advocate, but then they hold a mirror up to you, and that is scary. I'm not saying it's not easy, but you get out what you put in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is a misconception of coaching sometimes, that it's somebody's going to tell you what to do or how to be or the way forward, when really it's more about just facilitating a conversation, like you said, holding that space for somebody to talk, and then for someone like me as a coach to ask you the questions that you may have not necessarily asked yourself to that point. And then you start to think, oh yeah, I'd never thought about it like that, or I've never actually said it. Or, one thing I learned in coaching was when people say something and then you, like you said, you hold the mirror up and you say it back to them so they can actually hear what they've said. Sometimes they agree with it, and then sometimes they think, well, no, actually that's not what I want. And then it's a journey or a transformation onto the next thing that they actually want to look into.
Yeah, and that the crossovers there with counselling, massive. Like what you were explaining there is just called reflecting. Like when I first started studying about 2.5 years ago, studying counselling on level 2, I was like, so you just repeat back what they say, and they're like, sometimes you might paraphrase it, or so you're saying to me that you feel trapped, and like I said, that seems very easy, but it's not. You just have to reflect what they say, or you're trying to clarify how you understand what they say, and that again helps them understand what they're trying to say, I suppose.
Yeah, a lot of crossover, because a lot of what you're saying there that you've learned in counselling training, I have come across in training to do coaching as well. The one thing I wanted to ask you as well, while we're on that subject, is in the counselling training, do they talk a lot about active listening?
Yeah, and that's a very hard thing for me and for people, because you never learn how to listen, I suppose. Like, how often when you're speaking, and we're all guilty of this, when someone else is speaking, are you queuing up what you're going to say next? And yeah, I'm a fidgety person, but I've gotten a lot better at listening to people. So even though if I'm like shifting around, I'm still listening to what you're saying. But then people want to jump in, don't they, with their own thing? And there's a big power in silence and giving it some space for you to gather your thoughts and for the other person to maybe add to what they're saying. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing I really struggled with when I started coaching, was letting the silence linger. Because there was a time where I would ask a question and I wouldn't get an immediate response. And I asked the guy who was doing our coaching training, what do you do in that situation? If you ask a question and the person you ask the question of doesn't answer for 30 seconds to 40 seconds, which is not a long time, but then when you just sit in one-to-one, it can feel like a very long time. And he just said, just let it be and just give them that space to think, because the reason they're not answering is because they haven't figured out what the actual answer is yet.
Yeah, that's really important. Did you see how I left 2 seconds then?
Yeah.
Just being in that space, it's very powerful, and we have to train ourselves to be in that situation. But yeah, being in the one-on-one is such a unique dynamic between two people, and you really can develop what's called like a relational depth, that you can get to a stage where you can be comfortable with each other and build a relationship. And I think if you are looking for a counsellor, shop around if you can afford private counselling, which I think how much you pay for go to the gym a month, right? I think that people should arguably spend the exact same amount on their mental health every month, because physical health and mental health should be on par. And I think that's a big part of what we're trying to achieve as well.
And is that why you keep your sessions free? Because you want people to have access to it and not be priced out of something that they need help with?
Yeah, because and with it being peer support, I don't think you can justify charging people a lot of money to show up and sit in a room. And like, if we're in a physical meeting, maybe we'll ask for donations to cover overheads, so we'll make sure we've got biscuits and teas and coffee. Because, you know, if I go to a meeting and there's no biscuits and teas and coffee there, I'm a bit like, yeah. No, but I think that's really important. It makes people feel at home. But yeah, I certainly think these kind of things, peer support sessions, can remain free. If it then becomes like, I've done a bit of well-being training last summer, and I charge people for that because I've prepared a big pack of resources that have come from all my experiences, and I think people in working at well-being often undersell themselves. So you know, if you're a professional person who's providing a service for someone in a private manner, then you do deserve to be paid for it, which is a big thing, you know. But whereas if I'm a volunteer providing peer support, then I will provide peer support as long as I can for free, as long as I'm, you know, being supplemented in other areas. And we're building up networks and facilitators, you mentioned. So any men that I know that just get it in terms of mental health, I always like loop them in and say, are you interested in becoming a facilitator? And as we get funding further down the line, because we're a non-profit, we can get those men trained in mental health first aid, and some of them we can get them kick-started on some kind of courses, I don't know, towards mental health.
I think that's amazing. So it's not just a space where they can come and talk and peer support. It's actually a space where they can actually then progress into supporting other people as well.
Well, that's it. I think Talk About Mate is a constant. It's a community. So, you know, you're not just joining one session. You'll then get an invite to the WhatsApp group, which has got men and women in. You've got access to other events, and you've got places to come to if you've got questions. So, you know, someone might have a question about a new medication that they're on, pop it in the WhatsApp group, because these people are non-judgmental. They're not closely connected to you like your friends or family, so you don't have to be as worried about what people might say or judge you back. There's a certain glory in that they can be anonymous if you want. Like, you don't know the people that well, but then you can also build a relationship. So we're keen to, build the community, source our facilitators from within the community, both male and female. And now we've built a production team from our community. So I'm the founder. John's come on board. He's my partner now. And he used to be an actor, so he knows about filming and sound and editing. We've got a podcast guy who's like sound engineer, videographer, a guy who's doing branding for us. And because these guys believe in the project that to raise the profile of mental health. But there's a lot of organisations out there, which there should be, and we'll always send people to the organisation that's best for them. But for me, we're not just a suicide prevention charity. We're a place where people can come, feel comfortable, and take the steps to begin to grow. So you can come at really any stage.
I love that. That's really amazing. So for anyone who's watching, I know we're not quite at the end yet. No, I'll tell you what, we'll save that till the end. To where you guys are. So without sort of giving away anybody's confidentiality from the groups, for anyone who's watching this who hasn't had a chance to peer support or be in a group where they can talk about, how they've struggled through lockdown, what sort of things have been coming up in conversations that people are, finding difficult during lockdown?
Oh, well, yeah. Mental health's up and down. It's been like we've covered about 60 topics. The first thing I would say is we recorded one of our sessions. All the guys consented that were on the recording, and it's on the podcast. And basically, I introduced it, but we're checking. So how are you feeling here and now? Because before you can really enter a session, you need to kind of ground yourself. So if you're like been rushing and you're not settled. If you've had a bad day, we give you an opportunity to say, I've had a really bad day, this happened, I'm feeling a bit stressed. And then you've got it out. Then we choose a topic. So it could be anxiety's come up a number of times, challenge, growth. We had one about male body image the other week. Just so many, the future came up as a topic because people don't know what's going to happen. And then we, depending on numbers, we'll break off into 2 breakout rooms of like 5 or 6 people for half an hour, and then come back at the end and check out. So yeah, we do have confidentiality, but there has been some pretty big disclosures in the group, and that's a testament to the attitude and how comfortable in the safe space people feel within the group. But I would urge people to listen to the podcast.
So where can people find the podcast?
Yeah, it's on Anchor, which is also on Spotify. So if you just type it, and I think it's on Apple Podcasts as well. So you just Google Talk About It Mate podcast. It'll come up from wherever you get your podcasts from. But we're all over the socials, and we've got a lot more content coming in the next few months. So hoping to use that because we know our groups are good. And the only negative, I think, is that we haven't got more people coming because we're well set up, our infrastructure's in place. And I think more people will benefit from this because we've increased it, I'd say 400% over lockdown in terms of attendees and other things. So we can do even more after.
Brilliant. So for people who, if they want to listen to the podcast, where can they find links to the session? Is it still on Meetup or is it through the website?
Yeah, you can go to talkaboutmate.co.uk and just click on podcast. And then, and if you want to sign up, there's a sign up form on there. But if you want to actually attend an event, the best thing to do is go on Meetup. You don't have to put your full name, just put your first name and a picture. And that's where we post all our things. So you can RSVP, and then because it's Zoom, we can't put all the links out publicly. So you'll just get a link to the Zoom link. You don't want Zoom bombers who just come into the room and you don't know who they are. I'm like, turn your camera on. But a lot of the guys know each other so well now. My dad's been to all the sessions, and he lives over in Isle of Man. I haven't seen him for like a year, and he even him as like in his 60s has like come on so much over the last few months, and it's great to see.
That's fantastic, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? Making sure that people are progressing and getting the peer-to-peer support they need. Just, I wanted to touch on before we finish. I noticed on your Instagram today you had a thing called Walk About It Mate as well. Can you just tell us a little bit about the other things that you're doing offline?
Yeah, I mean, Walkabout and Mate, like we've done meetups, so like I say, over the last few years, last 3 years. Sometimes we've gone on walks and things like that, but then we're trying to hopefully do one a month where we get people can get together and go for a walk and have a chat. I mean, this walk and talk for mental health thing is everywhere now, as it should be. As people get outside, they need to get outside more so now because people are cooped up. But that's good because I think a lot of people who don't like to sit and talk because they feel it's quite a heavy thing, don't mind walking and talking at the same time. I know men in particular like to be doing something while they talk about their feelings, or like there's a thing called Men in Sheds for older guys,
Right.
for example, which is brilliant, and like man can sharpen his tools while going there. And I think Walkabout Mate is that kind of thing, but it relies a lot on volunteers. So unfortunately, I can't run all the events, and when we have volunteers who step up, then it just helps us loads.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. So for anyone out there, talkaboutitmate.co.uk.
Yeah.
On Instagram, are you guys Talk About It Mate, or just
Talk About It Mate,
at
and on Twitter
Talk About It Mate?
Talk About It Mate.
So the podcast is on Anchor and on Spotify. It can also be found through the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can
YouTube.
Sign up to. Sorry, say again.
I think we've got a YouTube, but I haven't updated it yet. But yeah.
Okay, so YouTube as well. Maybe not. Maybe coming. Can sign up for the online support groups through Meetup and through the website as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is there anything else? Is there anywhere else they can find you guys if they need support, or is it predominantly the website and Instagram?
Yeah. Well, the website, and I mean, I do put there is a contact number on there if people do to ring it. But I would say like a big chunk of what we do is signposting and advocacy. That's the easiest way you can help someone in mental health is, and you don't have to be there to solve a problem. Like if they're having a serious moment, or there's anything that they're saying that's really, really worrying you, we're a voluntary organisation, but like there are big established charities out there as well, like Mind, like Samaritans, like and then if it's so serious, then don't hesitate to call up 111 and ask for advice, because if someone's having a mental health crisis, I don't think sitting in a room full of people when they're completely breaking down would be the right thing for them. So but I will always make sure that we signpost people to the right support level that they need.
Yeah, brilliant. So last question for me then. What does Mike Richard do when he needs to just escape and wants to just detox, de-stress? How do you escape?
Great question. Yeah, I've had to work a lot on boundaries, especially the last 6 months as it's taken off. I've started to say 1 in 4 meetings now that I miss, because I can't, if you attend every single meeting, it's quite hard to facilitate that many meetings. So what's the word? I've given away a little bit of the responsibility to some of the other guys. I get out and walk. I like listening to podcasts. I started playing football again, being back at the gym again.
Nice.
Because like a lot of people, lockdown came and I just put loads of weight on. But I got married last year, so that's my excuse that now. Got to put all the weight on. But yeah, I also try and stay connected. I have my own therapy, which I have weekly, and I'm going to have supervision as well. So, I'll be having therapy for the rest of my life because I'm going to be a therapist. And, I just know when to bring those things. And sometimes I even bring them to the guys in the group, because it's not that I don't speak. I bring some of my things as well. So luckily, I do a lot for my self-care and yoga. Not very often now.
Go on then. What's your go-to podcast? Who's your favourite? Do you have one?
I've listened to a lot of mental health ones. Let me think. Over lockdown, my favourite one was Louis Theroux.
Oh, right, interesting.
He's a master at, he's bad at active listening and responding skills to people. He's a master at that. But he's got some interesting people that he listened to. There was one with the footballer Troy Deeney, which really challenges perceptions of footballers and was really interesting. So that's one I'd recommend. There's been a few I've been recommended which I haven't listened to yet, which I want to listen to one called Reasons to Be Cheerful it's got Ed Miliband and some other guys, and they take like positive things, and I like that kind of thing. It's quite thought-provoking. And a few football ones here and there to keep me going as well. So yeah, podcast is something I've only gotten into the last 6-7 months, even though I recorded 2 seasons on my own podcast, not knowing what I was doing. So, just do it, I say.
Yeah, just go for it. Brilliant. Well, Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. And if anyone's needs support, Mike Richard and Talk About It Mate are available pretty much every day, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, people can message us whenever, and we'll get back to you, and we'll, like you said, we'll send you the right direction, or we'll sign you up. But I would say don't hesitate to get involved, and like if you put that effort in, the courage to show up, courage, compassion, connection, the courage to show up, it does pay off, I think. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everything you're doing for people out there.
Brilliant. Great chat, and good luck with everything that you do. I'm sure we'll keep connected.
I'm sure we will. Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
Take care.
Bye.